Creature Commandos is an animated TV show with only one season out so far, spanning 7 episodes long. It's also R-rated, completely written by James Gunn. All 7 episodes are written by him, and serves as the soft introduction to the DCU, with the show being greenlit before James Gunn became the head of the DCU, but like I said, still written by James Gunn. James Gunn had all, the final say on how the show is supposed to be. So this basically, the way I see it is this serves as a soft introduction into this universe before we get the full introduction with his Superman movie. And so for this review, I decided that I would, instead of trying to script it, or instead of like I did with the Penguin video and just sitting down talking, that I would give this a little bit of a format, go episode by episode and give my thoughts on it. And what I would do is I would just rewatch the episodes, and then when I'm done rewatching an episode, come on here, talk about it, then go rewatch the next episode, then come talk about it, so on and so forth. So without further ado, let's get right into this review. Episode 1 is, alright. Now, I'll admit, I'm, a little bit biased towards this episode, just because, on my first watch, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, and I just couldn't get into it. It took me, a few days later for me to actually, try to rewatch it in order to actually be able to finish the episode. There's some not great moments. I know I tend to cringe easily, but, the two cringiest moments in this episode is definitely the, "What's up" reference that I'm so goddamn sick and tired of, I'm not gonna lie. As well as, when the princess just randomly yells rock and roll. But that's pretty much it. Overall, as, a first episode, I'd say it's fine. It does a good job at introducing us to all of these different characters that we're going to be spending time with throughout the show. We get a little look into each and every one of them without delving too deep into them, because of course we have dedicated episodes to each of their origin stories. Overall, I do like this lineup, probably the most out of all the Suicide Squad-esque lineups that we've gotten throughout the years. Of course, I can't really speak on the comics, and I won't really mention the game, but in terms of, movies and TV shows, I like this lineup the most out of the 3. We get a robot that kills Nazis, which is already goated. We get Phosphorus, who basically just looks like Blight from Batman Beyond. I wouldn't be surprised if Blight is supposed to be Phosphorus, but just the DCAU version, but he looks like a character from the DCAU, so I like him. We get the Bride, who quickly becomes one of, if not my favorite character in the entire show. We have Weasel returning from the Suicide Squad, which honestly, given the fact that Weasel was probably my least favorite character of that movie, can I say he was my least favorite when I don't remember jack shit from the movie? Weasel was not a character that really, did much for me in the Suicide Squad movie. But in here, I actually do kind of like him, I'm not gonna lie. Him pissing on Phosphorus' leg is pretty funny. And then we also have Nina, who, is also cool. We get a little bit of, the team-up between Nina and the Bride, and basically starting their friendship, and I really like it. Because obviously, the Bride is this, no shits given, very rude, and then Nina's, this just nothing but fucking wholesome positivity. I think a scene that is peak their friendship is the guard scene where the Bride gets the cash and she walks away and Nina's like, thank you, she meant to say thank you, and then you hear the Bride just yell, I did not mean anything of the sort! It's just a nice little introduction to this friendship that we'll get to slowly watch grow throughout this show. Oh yeah, and then of course I get Rick Flag Sr., we're also basically told that this is in the canon of the DCU, and we're also just told what is part of the canon of the DCU, which is that James Gunn Suicide Squad is canon within the DCU, along with Peacemaker. Apparently it doesn't matter how many fucking times he says this, people will still be confused. And I really don't get how you can be that confused. We at least know that the Suicide Squad is canon in this universe, given the fact that they reference it. They reference that apparently Rick Flag Jr. died. I'm gonna be real with you, if that happened in the movie, I don't remember it. But, they allude to it as Project Starfish, which even as someone who doesn't remember anything from that movie, I at least remember Starro, because he was my favorite part of the movie. So hearing Project Starfish being used, it's oh, that's probably the events of the Suicide Squad. So yeah, this whole, the canon's confusing. It really isn't. But overall, the episode is just introducing us to the characters, introducing the plot line of the season, which is basically just to protect the princess of Pakistan. We also get like a little fight scene between Rick Flag Sr. and Phosphorus, and I think it's really good. I think the animation in this show, especially during like the fight scenes, is fucking great. But yeah, I'd say my one flaw with the episode, and it's not really a flaw with the episode of the show, it's just one thing of note that I want to mention. The music. I know it's James Gunn's thing, basically, to have action sequences soundtracked by some obscure fucking song. He's done it with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He's done it with the Suicide Squad. He's doing it with Creature Commandos. And I guess I get it with this time around because, again, it's another, group of characters teaming up show, just like Guardians, just like the Suicide Squad. But I'm not going to lie, I'm getting a little tired of the formula. I could stand it in this show. I'm just bringing it up because I just want to say I really hope this does not end up being the Superman movie. I'm still excited for that movie, still looking forward to it, still have faith in it. I'm just really hoping the action sequences aren't just random, obscure, 70s or 90s punk songs or whatever the fuck. But yeah, overall, I'd say episode 1 is pretty good. It's a little rough of a start, at least in my opinion. But again, I say that as just someone who did have a rough start trying to get into the show because of the first episode. And a little bit as well with this rewatch. I kind of have to remind myself the show gets a lot better after the first episode. But, for an actual first episode of having to introduce the characters and the loose story of the season, I think it does a good job. I think other things of note is just the voice acting's really good. While I was on this rewatch, I found some article from the voice actress for the princess talking about how difficult voice acting is and how regular actors are privileged, and I respect her for that take. That is a correct take. It's just nice seeing someone actually give the praise that voice acting deserves. Alan Tudyk as Phosphorus is fucking insane, dude. He does not sound like the Joker. He also appears later in the series as a different character and doesn't sound like any of the characters that he usually voices. Yeah, I love his Joker performance, and I can't find even a hint of that in this performance of Phosphorus, and I fucking enjoy it. I think he has a lot of funny moments later on in the show, but yeah, he's fucking great. Obviously, Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, I think she's just gonna fucking stay as Amanda Waller, going into the DCU. If they want to use her, she'll probably still be a part of it. I'm completely fine. I may not know a lot of takes of Amanda Waller outside of, the one in Assault on Arkham. I think that's the only other one other than Viola Davis, but she knocks it out of the park. She's great. I think if we were ever going to say there was a definitive Amanda Waller, it's going to be Viola Davis at this point. And last but not least, I just want to shout out Indira Varma. I very much do love her performance as the bride, honestly. 1, British accent on a woman. 10 out of 10. 2, obviously, I love the accent. I love the fact that the Bride of Frankenstein gets to have a British accent, but I also just love her overall tone of sarcasm and a little rudeness, and just, all in all, great. Love it. And also, the episode ends off with a little hint of Frankenstein, and a little introduction of the story between Frankenstein and the bride that we'll get into, I believe, in the second episode. But, apparently Frankenstein's voiced by David Harbour in this? I kind of knew David Harbour was in this show, but I didn't know what character. Fucking Frankenstein was not the person I thought he would be. Just that really cold delivery that just sounds so good. This man could say anything. It's the natural joke, but he could read the phone book. I'd be completely fine with it. I just want to hear this man yap. Yeah, even the tease of Frankenstein is really great. It was a good tease into the character and the story, and it's ooh, what's this Frankenstein? What's this? What's he gonna be like? Overall, I'd say episode 1 is a good starter episode, like I said, in terms of introducing us to these characters and the storyline. In terms of starting the show itself, I think it's a little iffy, but the actual, excitement and hype and being locked into the show, I believe, comes with episode 2. Episode 2 is when the show really starts to pick up, in my opinion. We get the first of several origin stories, with this one being the bride herself. I don't even know what to say. One, I fucking love the bride. As I already said, she's like one of my favorite characters, and I don't know, she just kicks ass. I mean, ignoring the origin story for now, if we just focus on just the fight between the bride and Cersei, it's fucking great. Like, the bride kicks absolute ass. She wipes out every fucking dude there, and even manages to almost fucking beat Cersei, which leads into one of the funniest moments in the episode, is when Cersei uses her magic to turn her arms into the wacky inflatable arm flailing dude things, and the bride's one and only response is, "What the fuck?" I just love a character getting affected by magic and having, like, a realistic reaction to it. Not to mention, the episode pretty much ends off with, like, more of Nina and the bride's great friendship, with us basically thinking that they're gonna die, and the bride looking over to her and saying sorry, and Nina gasping for breath just makes out the words, "Go fuck yourself." And then the bride actually smiles. Like, she sees Nina finally break from her overly positive energy and insults her, which is valid because Nina straight up thinks she's gonna fucking die in this moment. So yeah, go ahead, drop that shit. But I just find that little moment between the two really great. I think that's when their friendship, like, really starts right there. But yeah, going into the bride's actual origin story, like, man, I don't know, I got several thoughts. One, while I still like Frankenstein in this show as a whole, mostly because of David Harbour's performance as the character, I can't not acknowledge the fact that he's a fucking weird, creepy stalker. But in a way, I kinda like that. Like, I just like this take on Frankenstein of him being this fucking just lack of any self-awareness, just an absolute creep. In his mind, like, the bride is his wife, his... God, there's just so much things I can talk about. Like, the Frankenstein's view of love is so off. It's so not it. Like, love is supposed to be this natural thing that happens between two people, and Frankenstein is basically trying to force that to happen. And when it doesn't go as planned, he gets very upset. Ignoring just the fact that he tries to force love, like, even without that, he'd still be a horrendous boyfriend, because, my God, this man does not know how to fucking listen. His own father's telling him, like, hey, you gotta step back. Look, okay, babies are in the womb. They understand life. They understand all this. Your wife, your bride, literally just fucking existed. Like, just got born. She don't know shit. She's scared. There's nothing but fear. We gotta be slow with this. We gotta gradually bring her into... And Frankenstein's just like, nah, fuck that. Let me just shove my ugly, horrific face into her fucking eyes. I know I keep saying Frankenstein. I know it's technically Frankenstein's monster, but, like, fucking, who cares? When I say Frankenstein, you know what I mean. But, like, the doctor, Victor, I'm gonna call him Victor. Victor is, like, trying to teach her how to speak, and even Frankenstein doesn't want that. Like, he's so impatient. He just wants the love immediately. He even tries to kind of force himself on her, which is not good. But it's out of just complete... I don't even know if it's ignorance. It really can't be ignorance, because he has Victor fucking telling him all of these things. He's just incapable of listening. In his mind, he thinks because he asked for the bride to exist, because the bride was made for the reason of being his wife, that's what she should be. She's not allowed to have her own personality. She's not allowed to be in love with anyone else. She's not allowed to have her own thoughts, basically. She needs to be his wife because he says so, which I think is pretty great commentary on the current state of the fucking manosphere. You know, maybe in a weird way I can relate to Frankenstein because of my horrendous past of codependency. It's interesting. It's kind of like watching an old version of me, but, like, what could have happened if I got even worse? And I like the little montage we get at the end of the basically centuries of Frankenstein constantly going after his bride and them constantly fighting, with the bride obviously beating his ass every time because she's a fucking queen. My favorite part of it is when they're in the trenches and when they're in war. It shows how goated the bride is because she managed to be able to fight in war 7 years before women were legally allowed to do that. Nah, but for real, episode 2 fucking kicks ass. It's also got easily the funniest sex scene I've seen in any TV show or movie. Like, I'm gonna sound very fucking American here. I'm not the biggest fan of sex scenes. I always find them uncomfortable to watch and, like, really awkward. I'd rather just have it be alluded to. But in this case, they do the allusion. They don't really, like, show anything. Really, the only thing you hear is just the moans. But it's also just, like, really funny because you get Phosphorus's dialogue on top of it all. Give him, like, 30 seconds. Yeah, Weasel, you make a good point. You know, he is an old man. Could have some experience. Give him a full minute. I like that. I like how instead of having to sit and watch it, we get to just, like, hear in the background as funny moment happens with Phosphorus letting him get... I can't finish it. It's just good. It's funny. I don't really have much to say about Cersei herself, other than if this is to show what we might get for, like, magical characters and magic in general in the DCU, I really want James Gunn to handle the Teen Titans, or at the very least, give us Starfire, because we could get a fucking banger Starfire in this universe. Dude, imagine Raven. Oh, even just thinking about that, ooh. I hope we get a Teen Titans. I really do. I hope we get a Teen Titans, and I hope it's good, because we haven't had one that was good since the first one. Yeah, overall, even though I just got done watching the episode, I can't really remember. I can't think of much that happens other than it just shows the origin story of the bride. We get a little bit of, like, the main story of the bride, Nina, being in the fucking castle, and Rick having to go and try to save them, Cersei attacking the castle. That's pretty much it. Oh, fuck. How did I forget to mention this? Yeah, I agree with Jonas that it's a little creepy watching Victor fall in love with the bride. Like, Victor's more like a dad. Like, he literally gave birth to her, and, like, she's his child, and he, like, does fatherly things, like raise her, and teach her English, and all those stuff. And then they be fucking. Yeah. On my first watch, I don't know why I didn't really make the connection there. I didn't really think about it, honestly. I was a little more sad for Frankenstein. As much as I disagree with every fucking ideology that Frankenstein has in the show, it's gotta hurt to watch who is your true love, or who you think is your true love, getting dicked down by your father. Even just saying that, Jesus Christ. But yeah, no, when I think about it, it's a little creepy that relationship happens, but, like, what are you gonna do? He's dead anyways. Anyways, yeah, good episode. Now time for pain. You're on thin ice, James! Thin fucking ice! No, okay, let's cut straight to the chase. The fucking death of G.I. Robot breaks my heart and pisses me off. Dude, on my first watch of this episode, I literally started it with, like, it's either the first scene with G.I. Robot, or it's the first of one of his flashback origin scenes. Whichever one it was what made me say out loud, G.I. Robot's my favorite character in the show. I love him. He's so good. And then you do this to me, James! I have to watch him blow up! Not to mention, dude, I don't know what fucking song they play during that scene, but I love it because, oh my Jesus Christ, the way the singer's voice is breaking and she's crying out in desperation moves me to tears. And then you pull this shit! How fucking dare you, James? Superman better fucking be good. Fuck it. I don't care that G.I. Robot comes back at the end of the show. You fucking watch it. You're still on thin ice. I don't care. Bring back the character. Fuck you. Okay, but no, let's actually look at this seriously. Episode 3, quite honestly, probably one of my favorite episodes. And it's not just because we get to spend a lot of time with G.I. Robot, but it's pretty much because we get to spend a lot of time with G.I. Robot. His origin flashbacks are probably my favorite out of all of them. I love the fact that we get to watch him just kill Nazis. We get to watch him battle in World War II, to then becoming basically just this robot for, like, scientists, to then being in some, like, pawn shop, being sold off to some war collector, to then coming back full circle to, like, killing Nazis, and then seeing where he ends up. You know, seeing that he ends up in jail, which really he shouldn't have. But seeing that he ends up in jail, and then, you know, eventually gets to become part of the crew of the Creature Commandos. I like the little hints we get to the war collector being the the kind of war collector that likes to collect things from the World War II, but it's really only from one side. Look, okay, I get it. They put the fashion in fascism, but like, it's a little sus. But no, like even just like the little hints of that he's basically a Nazi. Like it goes over like his collection. You just see the one Nazi hat, and it's like, ooh, okay. And then we're gonna go out to see the boys, and then you see the boys, and it's the 8-8 tattoo, and then the white power tattoo, and then I mean the white power tattoo is basically spelling it out right then and there. But like still, and I love G.I. Robot's voice acting. I think Sean Gunn plays the character, which is crazy given the fact that he also voices Weasel. So this man gets to play a giant weasel and just make noises, and then plays a fucking robot that kills Nazis and has such great voice acting. But I love the way he sounds when he finds out that the room is full of Nazis, and he's got this satisfied tone in finding out, ooh, Nazis, and then he kills them all. Also, is fucking, oh my god, I think it really what made me love him the most and made G.I. Robot my favorite character was the way he interacts with Nina, dude. It's so cute. The way they go into the castle and the first thing that he cares about is where's Nina. He always calls her friend Nina as well, and he sees her and he's like, my disappointment in not being able to kill Nazis is slightly better knowing that you're here. And then she's like, can't leave the bathtub. And he's like, don't worry, picks up the whole fucking bathtub. What a friend. God, I loved the friendship between G.I. Robot and Nina, and I absolutely fucking hate that we get that taken away from us in this episode. Again, I love the fact that he comes back at the end, but also, fuck you, James! How dare you do this? I don't care how good the DCU is. I don't care if Superman is like the greatest fucking movie ever. I will not forgive you for this. In reality, I think the segment is just me testing out how loud can I be in this mic. But it's just so good, dude. I love G.I. Robot. He's my favorite. And so obviously I'm gonna love the episode that's all about him, even if it ends in the most depressing fucking way. Actually, it's not even the most depressing, knowing what literally knowing what happens in the next episode. But still, fuck you. I will not get over this. I will not. No, but for real, like, what a great use of that song. I believe the song is Coin Operated Boy by the Dresden Dolls. Great song. I can't get over the singer's performance during the bridge. My god. Not only was the song sad, but then you had to end it off. You had to build up and end off with a fucking death like that. Why? Why would you do this, James? In the third episode as well. But overall, good episode, even though I now hold a grudge against James Gunn for this. I will not forget it. What the fuck, James? I'm like genuinely goddamn speechless. How can this episode have like so many funny moments, but then be the most goddamn heartbreaking shit I've ever seen in my life? God damn, I genuinely don't even know what the fuck to talk about. I feel like I need a minute to just, like, recuperate after what the fuck? So episode 4 does both the origin story for Weasel, at least a little bit of an origin story for him, as well as continuing on the main plot of the season, which is now switched up to kill the princess, because Cersei showed off the future, and the princess kills the entire Justice League, all that shit. Also, we get a little bit of a continuation with Frankenstein and his search for the bride, where he then convinces himself that the bride's in love with Rick Flag, so he stalks him, beats him up until finds out that it's all misunderstanding. And you know, the scenes with Frankenstein and Rick Flag are pretty funny. Like, Frankenstein, despite being a weird, creepy piece of shit, just full of codependency and a misunderstanding of love, he is pretty funny. I feel like we really start to see the humor behind Frankenstein in this episode. We get a little bit more of that in the next episode, I believe, but in this one we get some good highlights, like, you Dilfy piece of shit. We also get a continuation of the bride and Nina's friendship, with the bride defending Nina in the prison cafeteria and absolutely beating, like, not even beating, just fucking murdering, Gorilla. And, like, the little conversation on the plane back to Pakistan was pretty sweet. I like seeing the friendship between these two characters grow throughout the season. But that's it when it comes to the lighthearted parts of this episode, because the rest of it is pretty much the backstory of Weasel. It's not so much an origin story other than just how he got to prison. Kind of more explaining he killed 27 children, which turns out to only be 8, and also turns out to be he didn't actually kill any children. No, he was just a simple bystander, just hanging out with I'm pretty sure what he deemed as was friends. And then this dumbass old guy just sees a giant weasel and goes, oh, he's gonna fucking murder the children. And so he brings a shotgun and shoots at the thing, causing the gas tank to leak and then cause an entire fire in the school. Not to mention the fucking cops that don't even bother to try to protect the children. They want to be like, oh, we're protecting the children from this weasel guy. But the guy's literally carrying... Weasel's literally carrying a child out of a burning fucking building, and y'all can't just, let him do that? No, you have to kill him and let a child burn! So yeah, this is the most disturbing fucking shit I've ever seen in a TV show. It's not even a real-life one, it's animated as well. That's insane. I don't know, I knew the children were gonna die. I knew they were dead already. I knew what these flashback scenes were going to be doing. I just didn't know it was gonna be like this. I was not expecting on my first watch to actually watch child death. What the fuck? Like I said, I knew the children were gonna die. I thought maybe off screen. I didn't think we were gonna have to sit through watching a bunch of children burn alive, fucking listening to their cries of pain, and then watching Weasel trying to save at least one of them, and then failing, and then watching that child get buried under... Fuck, I can't even... A bunch of flaming wood and die? This episode broke my fucking heart. It broke my heart when I first saw it. It broke my heart now, just after rewatching it. And I gotta say, kudos to fucking Sean Gunn, because his delivery of Weasel's cries at the very end, watching this child die as he gets dragged away, just broke me. My heart still hurts. I genuinely cried watching this. I just... What the fuck? I don't know what else to say. This was disturbing. This was horrifying. Heartbreaking. Welcome to the DCU, I guess. Here's child death. I am genuinely at, just a loss for words. I don't know what else there is to talk about the episode. I'm genuinely sad right now. I'm sorry if the section is really short and I don't really have much to say. It's just, what am I supposed to say? My fucking heart is broken. I'm speechless. I'm stunned. I'm disturbed. I'm horrified. I'm broken. What the fuck, James? What the fuck? Not only do you end off last episode with killing off my favorite character, then you turn around and you're like, watch children horrifically die. Thanks, James. I gotta move on before I just start crying. Wait, no, I'm sorry. I just remembered one more thing I wanted to talk about the episode. As much as I absolutely fucking hate this goddamn old man that's such a fucking dumbass piece of shit that got these fucking children murdered, at least he practices gun safety. I'm actually, this isn't really even much of a bit. I'm actually just, kind of happy to see animators animate gun safety properly. Episode 5 doesn't really do any origin stories. The closest is a flashback to Frankenstein living with an old gypsy woman and, basically recuperating from, I believe, the fires with the bride when you first killed the victor. Outside of that, it's just the Commandos going back to Pakistan because they're told to kill the princess, which of course that doesn't go entirely as planned, and they end up having to run around the streets and try to escape the Pakistan army because Richard Flagg informed the princess of what's going on because he thinks that she's innocent. He finds this out by doing some investigating towards the doctor that basically said that Cersei was correct, and finding out that she's actually been murdered and replaced by Clayface. Now, I kind of had a feeling on my first watch that this woman was not the same as the one that we saw, I believe, in the previous episode. From just the fact that she's weirdly perverted with a student, and then wants to only focus on the lesbian aspect of Themyscira. And yeah, that turns out to be Clayface, which I just want to get into Clayface's character in this episode because it makes me more intrigued in that Mike Flanagan Clayface movie that's being made. If that's in the continuity and the canon of the DCU and not the Matt Reeves Batman verse like some people thought, I have several questions. Like, I really want to see what Mike Flanagan ends up doing with Clayface if canonically the DCU's version of the character is a gamer. One, he's just this fucking weirdo, kind of a piece of shit, kind of a creep, but also he's a gamer. He plays fucking Mortal Kombat 1 on the Xbox Series X. That is canon. I love that. And this is where I think I have to address an elephant in the room. I'm aware that if this show existed a few years ago when I first started reviewing media, you know, around the time that I made my Harley Quinn reviews and my reviewing every Batman movie, the pandemic era, one could say, I would have 100% hated this adaptation of Clayface. I wouldn't have liked the idea of seeing an Xbox Series X in a fucking DC show or having Clayface be some weird, kind of creepy, just man. I mean, I don't know what else to say. He's a straight man. That's it. Straight man. Like, you know what I mean when I say that. In case you don't, I don't mean like all straight men are like this. Of course not. But like the specific kind of straight man. You know, the kind that would solely just focus on the lesbian aspect of Themyscira because gotta fetishize the lesbians, am I right? But I would have hated this interpretation of Clayface because it's not like the comics. It's not like how the animated series or the Arkham games do it. But like, I don't know, man. It's so absurdly stupid that it's funny. I don't know, maybe I just give less of a shit in my 20s than I did as a teenager. The idea of Clayface being the straightest straight man you could ever see, and also a gamer, is really fucking funny to me. It's so dumb, I love it. So yeah, I'm very interested in what Mike Flanagan's take of the character is going to be given this. Yeah, moving on with the rest of the episode. The flashback scenes with Frankenstein are nice. You get some funny moments, not in just the flashback scenes, but specifically in those, you get like, oh, if I was blind, I would just kill myself. Or when the old lady says something about him being so, like, harsh or something, he goes, I still have the shotgun woman, don't test me. But even outside of the flashback, when him and Rick are in the house and they have to hide from Clayface, and Frankenstein just doesn't give a shit, and he just hides behind a bird cage, and that little interaction of like, do you think you're hiding? Oh, come on, I don't give a shit. I love that. It's interesting that James Gunn can write Frankenstein as this obvious kind of shit character with a horrible view on life, but especially love, but also make him funny. Which, yeah, I like how the old lady in the flashback was literally telling him, like, the bride does not love you. How can you not see this? How can you not accept this? And he just goes, no. I love David Harbour's performance as Frankenstein. I don't know what he's doing with his delivery, but it's so good. And the Frankenstein flashbacks, I think the episode as a whole ends with Frankenstein murdering the old woman, which, yeah, I saw that coming after he said, I would never leave you alone. Still hurt, but I also remember on my first watch, I saw that, I was kind of horrified, and then I thought, why am I horrified? I literally just watched children die last week. Oh yeah, and Rick Flag kind of dies, but like not really. Yeah, the only other highlight I can think of from the episode is when the Commandos are getting attacked, and you get probably one of my favorite action or like death sequences that I've ever seen of Phosphorus just sliding through a tank, murdering two people while flipping them off. That's so fucking good. Oh, and of course, the bride kicks ass as usual. I also like that, especially with how the last episode ended. This episode starts off really lighthearted, and we get back into, like, the jokes and the comedy, which is a very nice palate cleanser after watching fucking child death. Yeah, overall, good episode. So episode 6 goes back to the origin stories, with this one specifically being about Dr. Phosphorus. And as usual, it gets disturbing. Basically, he started as a scientist trying to come up with the cure for cancer, as one does. But he's getting all of his money from Rupert Thorne, who's working with I think a fascist country. And because his wife comes from a country that had a fascist regime, he tries to flub up the numbers, and that pisses off Rupert Thorne, to where you get probably the most disturbing part of this episode, where it goes from just the two of them as normal human beings to an immediate flash cut to his wife dead on the floor, covered in blood. Apparently his child is also on the body, and you just hear his fucking cries of having to see his dead wife and son in front of him, being forced to put his hands on the blood and onto the knife in order for the crime to be blamed on him. Again, props to Alan Tudyk. His cries of horror are a little terrifying to listen to. But yeah, in classic comic book fashion, Phosphorus gets stuck into his machine, where they put it on basically overdrive and turn him into Dr. Phosphorus, where then he just kind of goes crazy. I mean, he just says fuck it. He accepts what his life is now. He's got no wife, he's got no kids, he's not a normal human being anymore. He is now this freak, this monster of radiation, and so he immediately enacts his revenge on Rupert Thorne and his gang in very funny ways. And then he just becomes basically a crime boss. And we get this nice little montage of him doing all this stuff before it's finished off with a slight reveal of Batman. Which, of course, everyone goes to, oh, this is our first reveal of Batman in the DCU. I'd say to an extent. Now, do keep in mind, this was a show created before the DCU. I think this was greenlit back during the DCEU's life. If you do look at the Batman in this episode, he looks a little more like Ben Affleck, but like you could also just kind of assume that this is going to be the body shape of the Batman in the DCU. But James Gunn did say there was a lot of stuff from this episode Batman related that he did cut out because he just wasn't sure. It wasn't stuff that he wasn't ready to go into yet until he actually does have like a proper Batman for the DCU. So it's just like a small little hint. It works for me. I'm still looking forward to what James Gunn decides to do for his version of Batman. But I do like in this episode where he does the natural, like, taking out the lights, he's up on the skylight, he takes out Dr. Phosphorus, it's all top-tier Batman shit. The other half of the episode is basically Phosphorus, Nina, and the bride, as well as, I believe, Weasel escaping the Pakistan army, who is, of course, hunting after them after the last episode. We get the Phosphorus backstory scenes when he's hiding in a house that has a child. The child obviously reminds him of his own family, which I kind of like the fact that the family isn't like too, like, they're a little stunned and surprised to see a glowing skeleton playing with their child, but they don't really, like, do much. He puts the child down, apologizes, asks for where the castle are, they point him directions, he leaves. They're just like, well, if you're not hurting our child, I guess we won't hurt you. Weasel gets to hang out with some like wolves in the forest, which I think is like really wholesome. He gets to like actually be with, I guess, the closest thing you can call to his kind. And it's like a little heartbreaking when he has to leave them because he has to finish his mission. And then you get the bride and Nina together. And this is easily like one of my favorite parts of the episode. Of course, I do really love the Dr. Phosphorus origin story, but I do also really like this part of the episode, because we get more of that Nina and the bride's friendship growing, but we also get something that I've been waiting to praise James on until this episode. Nina and the bride take hiding in a brothel. Everything goes fine. Pakistan guards come by, and the women and I guess the boss of the place keep Nina and the bride hidden. Everything's good. Obviously, like, the boss and the bride have a bit of a disagreement about the morals and the integrity of sex workers. But it isn't until these two men come into the place, drunk, loud, belligerent, I believe would be a word you could use in this scenario. Take one of the girls upstairs. Seems like normal shit. Until you hear screaming, and it turns out that, the guy was harming her. He was being a bit too aggressive, really selfish. The woman slapped him, and the guy's angry. Turns out the guy's a metahuman. He tries to destroy the brothel, tries to harm the sex workers and the women and the boss and everything up until fucking Nina comes in being really cool. And I think she smashes a bottle over someone's head. She does something. I think she attacks the asshole. And then, of course, the bride comes in and just fucking wipes the floor. Doesn't give a shit that this guy's metahuman, fucking rips his heart out straight from his chest. It's all top tier greatness. But the thing that I love about this is that James Gunn is really good at writing shitty men. Because not only do you have this scene in this episode, but also in, I believe, episode 3 is the one where the castle is attacked. And that also has another example of James Gunn's, great writing of shitty men, where one of the attackers finds the princess, grabs her, puts her on his shoulder, smacks her ass, and makes a comment about, oh, we could have some fun here. And then when she attacks him, I think slices his face to get off, the guy immediately calls her a bitch. You go to this episode, you have this guy harming the sex worker because of his own selfishness. She fights back, and he's immediately on, every whore's trying to ruin my day. Fucking, the bitch slapped me, the bitch hurt me, this fucking whore, every day, these whores are ruining my life. And it's like, I love the fact that James is able to write these characters that are obviously shit men abusing women, but once the women fight back, they immediately turn the woman into the villain. Very realistic, unfortunately. And I just think James is really great at writing those characters. And of course, the guy in the brothel gets what he deserves. And then the episode ends with the gang finally all coming back together and ready to kill the princess. Overall, it's a good episode. The origin story of Phosphorus is really good, really disturbing at times, quite depressing, but also fun. I mean, the don't get me wrong, the wife and child murder is not the fun part. But watching Phosphorus take his revenge is really fun. I just love that, who wants to shake hands with a skeleton? He's so good. And now we finally hit the last episode of the show. What the fuck, James? Who hurt you? The final episode includes the final origin story of the characters, this one being Nina in particular. And it's quite possibly the most depressing one out of them all. I don't know, Weasel had children burning, so it could be the second most depressing. In Nina's backstory, it shows how she became the fish creature that she was. Apparently, she was born with her lungs outside of her body, and her scientist father decided to keep her alive and use his science skill to create machines that will help her breathe. Her mom ends up disagreeing with this, thinking that this is not a life for somebody to live, and eventually leaves the life, leaving it to just be Nina and her dad. We get the sad scene of toddler Nina dragging around like 30 pounds of metal and just huffing and wheezing the entire time. So her dad decides that, yes, of course, these machines are no way for a child to live. So he decides to do the typical scientist shit and mold her DNA with DNA of aquatic animals, basically turning her into a fish person that can only breathe underwater. He tries to put her into high school, which of course kids are rude. And the humans make fun of her and call her a frog, bully her basically to the point that she decides to completely leave the human world so then she can go live in the sewers with other aquatic animals and basically just in the water. This is where I teared up on this rewatch, was the note to her dad and her saying that she's a burden to him, and watching the dad run out and, crying for Nina. It just, that got me. This all plays out to the end of her flashbacks, where the humans once again think she's just a sea creature, kidnap her, throw her into basically jail, Arkham, whatever the hell this place is that the freaks and the mutants have to stay at. Her dad hears about this on the news, runs up to her, gets to at least tell her that she was never a burden before getting shot in front of her, which is just fucking heartbreaking. And then the heartbreak doesn't end there, because we get the actual main plot of the episode, which is, of course, the main four finally enacting their plan to take down the princess, as well as Amanda Waller learning that supposedly that they were wrong and that the princess is innocent. But in order to kill the princess, they decide to use the opportunity of sneak and her swimming in her fucking private lake and using the water as advantage, having Nina be the one to kill her. And so the bride talks Nina into doing it. Phosphorus gives a little bit of a motivational line, and Nina goes to do it. Weasel fucks everything up. The princess now knows. Nina and the princess fight a little bit until, unfortunately, Nina dies. This is where I just have to say, what the fuck, James? Like, seriously, who hurt you? A thing that I liked about this scene is the close-up on the princess as she kills Nina. She goes in for, like, several stabs, and you see the blood and the water go around the princess's face, and you can see the evil in her eyes, but then when she arrives out of the water, she looks all stunned. It's like a nice little look at, like, oh, the princess is, like, actually kind of, like, she actually is evil, but she plays like she's not. And then after, like, a little funny scene between the bride and Phosphorus about not being touched for 15 years, the bride then enacts her full revenge towards the princess, goes into her office, basically tells her that she believes that they were right all along, that Cersei was right, that the princess is an actual evil person, that she basically, made Rick Flag fall in love with her, that she sent one of her knights to watch them, that she was behind Clayface. Because we get that reveal at the beginning of the episode, kind of. They hide Clayface, but when you're on a rewatch, you can actually kind of make out that it's a little bit of Clayface. And, so the bride basically tells the princess that she believes that the princess is evil, but that she's not going to kill the princess in order to stop World War III. She's not going to kill the princess to save the world. That she's killing the princess out of an act of revenge because she killed the only friend the bride has. And even mentions that Nina was the only person with any kindness in her veins. And then what I love is that before the princess can even do anything, she already gets a bullet in the head. Like, the bride just always wins. You know what the bride also wins at doing? Killing Frankenstein. Yeah, this whole plot of Frankenstein trying to get to the bride amounts to literally nothing, and I could see how that could anger people. For me, I thought it was kind of funny. Like, yeah, the Frankenstein was basically just fucking useless. It confuses me, though, how I've seen comments of people saying, like, oh, maybe we'll get more of the Frankenstein stuff. Maybe we'll finish Frankenstein's story in season 2. Maybe we'll get more of Frankenstein and actual Frankenstein in the comics in season 2. Maybe we'll evolve Frankenstein's character in season 2. And it's like, am I stupid? Because I thought that he died. On the rewatch, I really do feel like they made it pretty obvious that he's dead. Not only did he get a couple gunshots in the chest, he can barely speak, and then just a full gunshot to the head. And with the line of that bride gives him of keep it in hell or something about going to hell, calls him a stalker piece of shit, which I love. I feel like he was genuinely dead. There's no coming back from this. I guess it's comics. You could write a way of how he survives this, but I don't know. I feel like that's the end of Frankenstein. I could be wrong, but that's just how I took all of this. Yeah, and then the episode ends with basically showing that we might end up getting a season 2. They set up a new team with the bride as the leader. We get Phosphorus back. We get Weasel back. We get this woman bat, which now that I think about it, maybe that's Man-Bat's wife. Because I know at least in the Arkham games, and maybe also in other comic book media, that Man-Bat's wife turns into a woman bat or a she-bat or whatever the hell they want to call her. So maybe that could be Man-Bat's wife. We also get King Shark, not voiced by Sylvester Stallone this time, and not the King Shark that I'm accustomed to from the Harley Quinn show. But no, we get another version of King Shark. He's funny. He just looks at the bride and goes, "You have dumb haircut." And then probably the best part of this episode is that we are revealed that G.I. Robot somehow survived. They rebuilt him, made him a fucking tank. So if we do get a season 2, at least we get more G.I. Robot, which I'm happy about. That doesn't make up for having to watch him die in the 3rd episode. But, you know, at least he's back. I really don't know if there's anything else for me to talk about for this episode. Like, it's the Nina backstory. We finish off with killing the princess. We get a new group. Frankenstein's story seems to be over. I don't think Rick Flag dies because I think he's supposed to be in Superman 2025. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, just overall a very heartbreaking and depressing episode. It'd be really easy to say this is the most depressing episode in the show if it wasn't for the fact that episode 4 exists. But yeah, overall, like, a nice ending to the show. But yeah, James, who the fuck hurt you? My god. So overall, Creature Commandos is way better than I expected it to be. I was genuinely not that interested in the show. I just thought it was going to be another Suicide Squad-esque, another team-up made by James Gunn. I wasn't the biggest fan of his Suicide Squad movies, so I wasn't really expecting to like this. The first episode didn't do well at making me get into the show, but after that second episode, after the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and definitely by the seventh, I really like the show. It's a hell of a lot better than I expected it to be. It's also so fucking painful, dude. Like, not only do we watch G.I. Robot die in the third episode, we follow that episode up with children death. There's also kind of the heartbreak of the bride's backstory. There's the heartbreaking scene of Phosphorus watching, having to, look at his dead wife and child. And then we get the final episode with just Nina's depressing backstory and also her death. So while it's a great show, it's got all these funny moments. It's got these really fucking cool action scenes. It's got the bride kicking ass. It's got the Phosphorus cracking jokes. It's also just a very painful watch because we just watch these depressing ass, horrific moments and also get to watch our favorite characters die. So, like, while I'm still excited for Superman, like I said at the beginning of episode 3, James, you're on thin ice. What the fuck? But no, genuinely, I did very much enjoy the show. I'm looking forward to if we do get a season 2. If we don't get a season 2, I'm also fine with that. But if we do get one, I'm definitely going to be on board of watching that. And I'm, in general, for this being a soft introduction to the DCU, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I already was looking forward to it. I have hope for this because James Gunn actually reads comics, unlike Zack Snyder. But I'm looking forward to the DCU even more after this show. And especially with the whole thing of James Gunn wanting to hire actors that can also do voice acting for when those characters appear in animated shows. I'm very interested to see how that plays out. And I'm also just really glad to see James Gunn want to hire people that can do both acting and voice acting instead of just thinking that voice acting is just some fucking easy shit that anybody can do, because we've learned time and time again, no. But yeah, overall, Creature Commandos, great show, very heartbreaking at times, but also can be very funny. And yeah, just looking forward to the future of the DCU and possibly the future of the show.
And of course, everyone has their own opinion, but my opinion is the best opinion. I'm sure you figured that out already.
Subscribe and please